Well, Happy New Year, everybody. I want to welcome you to 2022. And I also want to give a special shout out to Mr. Blake Neal. Happy birthday. Today's Blake's birthday. So if you see him, blow out his candles for him. Tony, the other day when you were preaching, the Lord spoke to me that 2022 is a year of encouragement. Amen. And that's what I want to shape today. I want to shape that for you. It's a year of encouragement and strength. I am not huge. If you know me, I'm not huge into New Year's resolutions because I'm more into a lifestyle, a resolution. But that doesn't mean that God doesn't move in the new year. He moves in the new year. He's going to honor your decisions of where you want to go. So I would just encourage you not so much to make it a resolution as it is a lifestyle. And it's something that you hold on to and you hold fast to, because it's something that you want. When we want that resolution, when it's, what are the most, right now it's January 2nd. A lot of resolutions have already bit the dust. Really, the diet resolution or the workout resolution, it was like so good January 1st. And what? It's not Monday. Oh, it's not Monday yet. Yeah, that's true. You're putting me on that diet tomorrow, aren't you? That's right. Here I am saying I don't believe in resolutions, and she's putting me on a diet. Yeah. But the lifestyle is what's so important, isn't it? Is that when we make a decision before God, and we say, God, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want to drive. God sees that, and he honors that. And it doesn't have to be a New Year's resolution, because it can happen on February 1st. It can happen in March, April, May, June. It can happen anytime. But God respects your time. He wants to know what you're believing for. He wants to know what your expectation is for 2022. Because 2020 was, that expectation was, yeah. So if you're watching online, I just want to encourage you, please sign up for the week of prayer. Go to you can send an email to info@unitedwithchrist.org and sign up for a time. An hour time block would be awesome. And I just really encourage you guys to jump off this bridge with us into our Praying in the New Year 2.0. Like I said, I'm not so big into New Year's resolutions, but I'm also not big into funks. Because that's what the resolution brings, is the funk. Because you mess up and you get into a funk. And then it affects everyone around you. Did you know that? Say, I'm not in a funk. Say, I'm not heading for a funk. I don't want to be in a funk. Yesterday I had my oldest daughter walk into the room. And she was having some sort of issue. And she was apologizing to Amy and I about this issue, and we were trying to convey to her that the issue didn't just stop with her in that apology, but when she walks into a room, it affects her other sisters, which then affects me, and most of the time around my sleeping time. Because about 9 o'clock, they come kicking the door down, and so-and-so did this, or so-and-so did this, or the first thing in the morning you hear, this is what's happening, what's going on? So you can see how her just being in that little funk, and I appreciate the apology, but I'm telling her, but Ava, you have to look at the big picture. Your funk is affecting other people, and it's affecting me, and listen, I could care less about my sleeping time when it comes to my kids. When I wake up in the morning, I want to see my kid. Joe Dahmer, would you stand up? Joe's back with us. Joe, I love you, man. So Joe was just down in Wysa. I'm sorry. I should have wrote that down. I meant to write that. I knew I was forgetting something. Joe, I didn't forget you. That's my New Year's resolution. I didn't forget Joe Dahmer. I remembered. See? So Joe was down in Wysox Church with Pastor Tim Haller and helping them out down there in their even the worship team. I heard he was singing. And the youth group, so Paul, Nicolette, Terry, Joe was helping out in that youth group. Yeah, no, he's back. He's back and he's looking for something to do, I heard, because he doesn't like sitting still. So anyway, welcome back, Joe. Thanks for coming back and joining us. I hope that you had an amazing time. And so I don't want to be in a funk. So I want to be an encouragement and a strength to everyone around me. And what we're doing is we're helping to develop destinies, is what we're doing. When I think about 2022 being a year of encouragement and strength, I think about developing destinies. We all have those big prophetic words over our lives, or maybe from long term to short term, we have this destiny way off in the distance, and we've often talked about what do we do in that waiting time? What do we do in the meantime? And we're praying and we're seeking God's face and what's going on, but we are developing in our destiny what God's called us to do. And what I love about our church is that we're proactive about these things. So Tony, when you were speaking the other day, I love that analogy of salvation, and I think you said something, I'm probably going to butcher it, but like imagine like the most beautiful building, and you walk into it, and salvation is like standing in the lobby. Are you still in the lobby? Or have you visited that coffee house? Have you visited, he was just portraying like all the different rooms being different gifts of God, and are you visiting them? Are you dwelling with them? Are you building your destiny with these things? We have to build our destiny. We don't just build our destiny, but as we're building our destiny, we're helping you build your destiny. And we got a brand new baby in here. Julia and Marissa, that's a beautiful baby. I'm just being interrupted by all sorts of New Year's stuff. But as we're developing our destiny, we're developing other people's destinies. And that's the point of church, is coming together and sharing with one another the richness of God, the richness of the scriptures, the richness of ourselves, the deposit that's in us and what God's planted in us to then share. And that's what's so powerful even about our fellowship time after service here. So I encourage you, maybe you're someone that heads right out the door. Don't head right out the door. Grab a cup of coffee and talk with someone. Talk with someone that you haven't talked to in a while, or maybe talk with someone that you have never talked to. That's right. Help develop their destiny. Help develop their destiny. So your ability to encourage is going to be based on your character. And that's one of the attributes that I want to just bring out this morning inside of encouragement. I have to be honest, I was listening to a podcast by John Maxwell. And it's mainly business-based. But when I heard this and I heard about the character, I was just moved to the core, because it's our character that's going to help people advance. Because the character, it's your mainframe, it's your backbone, it's your inward strength, it's your inward stability, it's what people look at, it's how people judge you by your character. And so I just think that it's something that we have to work on and walk in daily. It's not something that we just, we've developed something, we've developed a nice picture of us, and then that's us. It's character, something that's always developing. It's always developing. It doesn't just stop. And I realize the more character that I have, the more stability that I have, the more strength that I have, the more that you can count on me. And I want you to be able to count on me. And likewise, I want to be able to count on you. So when you hear what I'm saying, maybe there's some people here that you're like, well, my character is lower, my character is high. This message is for everyone. because we're developing something here together. And this is something that I want to encourage even Amy and Dave and Eve and Mark, like as we bring messages on Sunday mornings, I want to bring different levels of encouragement and strength, like self-helps. What can you walk away with this morning working on tomorrow? Because that's what we're about. Now, I'm going to dive into the scriptures, but that's what it's about. I want you to grab something from what I'm saying. And this morning, I want to just talk about character and strength in prayer for a moment. And that's what I want you to take into your prayer time this week, is realize that your strength comes from your prayer. You're as strong as your prayer time. But back to the character thing, and also saying, like, over the first couple months here, I'd love to look at and discover some self-helps so we can be encouragers. You know, this is, like I said, this isn't something that happens overnight. So as we prepare on Sunday mornings, I want the ministers to prepare things that are going to be just self-helps for you that you're taking with you. The thing that it's just something, it's like an arrow that sticks in you with this magnificent barb that doesn't come out. And the only way it comes out is pulling it through. And by the time you pull it through, you're passing it on like a baton. Now, I know a bow and arrow and a baton are two different things. And the first image I gave you might have been a little gruesome. And then the second image I gave you was teamwork. But sometimes we have to face some gruesomeness to keep ourselves out of the funk and to keep our eyes on the prize and what God has designed us to do and to be and to drive in that direction, because you're the only one that's going to drive in the direction. I can't drive your car. We had a funny little thing happen on Wednesday night at the men's meeting, and Mark Rapecki almost thought his car got given away because Frank Contino decided to wrap up a pair of, well, I don't know if they were BMW keys, but they were a set of keys, and they were labeled Mark Rapecki's car. And what was really funny about that was the person that received was like, really? And I'm thinking, oh no, like this is. But Mark has his car to drive. He's driving his car. He's driving his character. And what I can learn from that is I can see his car. I can see the way he takes care of his car. I can see the way he drives his car. And I can glean from those things. And that's what we need to do, is we need to glean from each other the things that help. So that way we're not hindered with our weaknesses. But all of a sudden, our weaknesses become our strengths because we had help with our character. And as we develop our character, we encourage other people. Because what you're doing is you're making a real life scenario for someone that says, I can do that. I can live that. I can partake in that. Oh, if Amy can do it, I can do it. And that's really the attitude to have. It's not a selfish attitude. It's not a know-it-all attitude. It's an attitude that says, I have a gift. God's given me a life to live, and I'm going to live it with the best character possible. So that way when people look at me, they can say, I want that, and I'm going to get that. And that's what you want to pass along to people. So character is the mainframe. It's the backbone. It's your backbone. It's the inward strength and stability. The one thing I just want to touch on here is that as I was listening to this little podcast, it was talking about character versus reputation. And I thought that was really powerful. And So Mr. Maxwell gets done speaking, and they go into like this little question and answer session, and they talked about character versus reputation, and that's where it really hit me. And I want you to know that I could almost care less about my reputation. Because my reputation is what people think about me. My character is what I think about me. And if you are going to continue to care about what everyone else thinks about you, you're never going to care for yourself properly. Because you're going to be stuck on what everybody else is thinking about you. And you will not be able to think about yourself. So I just really want to encourage you that sometimes you need to take a look at yourself. Take this new year, open up yourself and look at what you have. Look at the gifts of look at the things that you need to work on. And don't look at it as like, oh, poor me or whatever. Just look at it like, no, I'm going to work on this thing. I have a lifestyle of Jesus Christ in my life that's a Christian lifestyle that will change the outcome of my life, not just by the end of January, but maybe by the end of the day and maybe by the end of the year or whatever it is you're trying to develop. But sometimes it takes time. In 2021, I lost like 25 pounds. It didn't happen in a day. I had to keep on going back. And thank God for Bill's subscription, because if he cut it off, man, I would have been stuck at a couple of pounds or something. But I had to keep on going back and going back and going back and going back. And I would look in the television screen and what that guy was telling me, and he would say, no, you can do this. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can do this. But there was times when I'm thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore, and I would stop. And me, being a man and a little bit of a solid head, I would bang it off the floor and be like, no, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And sometimes that's just a natural reflection of some of the spiritual aspects that we need to take on. No, Lord, you called me to this. You called me to this. It's your faith that you're putting out in front of God that's so powerful. It's called a gift of faith. And he's given a measure to every one of us. Not just a preacher, not just a fivefold ministry dude. We're just here to tell you that you have it and teach you maybe how to use it. And this morning, the best way that I can show you is just by my character. And telling you this is what I do. So for this next week, from 6 to 7, every morning, I'm going to pray. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to take things like my church, my family, my community, and I'm going to lift them up before God. And I'm going to say, God, these are the things that I want to see. These are my needs. Not wants, these are my needs. These are my needs for my community. These are the things that you've shown me. So when you begin to pray, think about the gifts that God has instilled in you. And then let your prayers reflect those gifts. How am I going to help my family? How am I going to help my church? How am I going to help my community? And as you start to concentrate on those things, the prayer becomes easy. As Ames said, I don't know if I have enough English words for an hour. You do. You do. I mean, there's praying in the Spirit, but it becomes, if you let it, it can become one of the best things and most glorious things you can ever do in your life. Because all prayer is communication with the Father. There's nothing spooky about it. Don't let it be spooky. Let it be a conversation piece that you have. And when you start public speaking and there was a couple people that actually had told me, like, just pretend like you're just talking to me. And I'm like, oh, I can do that. And then you get in front of people and you're like, oh, I know. Then you look at the person, yeah, I can talk to Aim all I want. I can talk to. Just pretend, even if you're just like, I don't even know how to do this. It's like you're just pretend like you're talking to the person that you love the most in your life. Someone that you care about. Someone that you share ideas with. God wants your ideas. If it's important to you, it's important to him. And that's what you need to know moving into tomorrow. If it's important to you, he wants to hear your voice. He wants you to express the need. It's so important to him. Because what's going to happen is when you realize what's important to you, that's when your gift comes out. You don't even need to search for it. I know what I'm strong in. I don't need to search for my strengths. And I absolutely hate searching for my weaknesses. But when I think about it, it's so easy to talk to God about. It's easy to talk to Amy about. I just want to turn over to Romans 12, verse 1. I'm going to be in the Mirror translation, so I think I have some slides ready for you. But just to reiterate that character versus reputation thing, please just realize that reputation is what others think about you, while your character is what you think about you. And that's what's important, what you think about you. I don't think it's a bad thing to get opinions from other people about you. But when that's what you're clinging on to and that's what you're cherishing, I think that's where the problem comes in. Because now you keep on trying to live up to what people are telling you. Instead, why don't we open the Word of God and read what God thinks about me and start to implement that? And as that starts to develop your character, that's going to shine like that light that the Gospels talks about. Jesus says, you are the salt, you are the light. That's what he's speaking about, your character shining forth. Amen. Romans 12, verse 1. Live consistent with who you really are. Inspired by the loving kindness of God. My brothers, the most practical expression of worship is to make your bodies available to him as a living sacrifice. This pleases him more than any religious routine. He desires to find visible, individual expression in your person. That's this week of prayer. In this week of prayer, this week, he's desiring to find visible and an individual expression in your person. Now, I also want to encourage you, if it's you and your wife, pray with you and your wife. If it's you have kids, whatever your situation is, don't make it difficult. There is already a sacrifice to this. You're giving up an hour of your day. And that's how I look at it. Because at different times during the day, because now I'm going to pray from 6 to 7, I have to adjust my day. I have to move my day. It's a sacrifice. He wants to find your expression in tomorrow. Verse 2, do not allow religious traditions to mold you into its patterns of reasoning. Like an inspired artist, give attention to the details of God's desire to find expression in you. Become acquainted with perfection. That is a big statement. As you pray tomorrow and Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, become acquainted with perfection. Realize that God didn't make a mistake. God never made a mistake when he thought about you. When he thought about you, he thought about perfection. He put everything inside of you. And then when that salvation moment comes, Tony, we walk into the lobby. We realize everything is, plated in gold or whatever. I remember when I was in Puerto Rico, I was in this mall, and it was like the most beautiful, extravagant woodwork in all of these shops all around. And when you said that, that's what I remembered. Not just because you're from Puerto Rico, because I love Puerto Rico. And that was one of my favorite places. And when I thought about one of my favorite places, I thought about the decor and everything that was around and how perfect it was. How much do we strive for perfection in the flesh? Don't lie to me on January 2nd. We strive for perfection. We strive for acceptance. We strive for people to see us do something right. My kids, they show me, my little Livy, she shows me the most ridiculous drawings. And it's up to me in that moment whether I crush her or exhort her. Now, I tend to lean heavy on the exhortation side because I really love what she's doing, and most of the time she's drawing a picture of me. As disfigured as it looks, it's still perfection. The face is like this, and it's like everything's over and shifted, and I'm like, am I really that big? What is... And then she draws mommy like this big, I'm like, what is this? She must really love you, babe. But become acquainted with perfection. I challenge you. Become acquainted with perfection. As you're praying, realize what God created. Realize that you are God's creation. He's created you just the way that you are. Mistakes and everything. And pray out of a perfect tense. Pray your perfect world. Pretend like you're looking through God's eyes and how he sees. Don't let judgment get in the way. Don't even judge yourself. But become acquainted with perfection. Become acquainted with perfection to accommodate yourself to the delight and good pleasure of him, and will transform your thoughts afresh from within. Verse 3, his grace gift inspires me to say to you that your thinking must be consistent with everything that is within you according to the measure of faith that God has apportioned to every individual. Let the revelation of redemption shape your thoughts. Verse 4, the parallel is clear. There are many different members in one body, yet not one competes with the other in function. Instead, every individual member co-complements the other. Isn't that amazing when you think like that? You're not me. Don't be me. Be you. Even though you're trying to glean from someone's character, or you see the way that they pray, or you see something they want, bring it into your world and make it yours. That's all I did with John Maxwell's podcast. The man is amazing. He talks, it's like a 6-minute podcast that David sent me one day, and I was like, bam! And I was like, what? But I'm taking it into my world. I'm taking it into my world and going, oh no, I need to develop, I'm developing my character. However anybody sees me, I don't care. Because I know that my character is my character, and it's my backbone, it's my mainframe, it's my infrastructure. And the more I work on that, the more stability I have, the more strength I have. Verse 5, in Christ, the many individuals are all part of the same body and members of one another. Verse 6, our gifts may differ in function, but his grace is the same. If it is your turn to prophesy, let faith and not a title be your inspiration. How powerful is that? Let faith be your inspiration, not a title. Don't worry about the title. Don't worry about the reputation. If it's reputation versus character, pick character every single day. In every single choice that you make it your character, not your reputation. Because people's reputation is going to change. And it's going to change daily. Especially if you put a title in front of your name. It's going to change daily. Because people are calling on you. So when it's your turn to prophesy, when it's your turn to pray, add your faith to it. Not a title. Not even a Mr. or Mrs. Add your faith, that a portion, allotment of faith that God has given you, and add it to it. Verse 7, the same goes for every aspect of ministry, whether it be serving or to give instruction. Verse 8, or to just be there alongside someone to remind them of their true identity. Always let faith set the pace. You are intertwined with your gift, wrapped up in the same parcel. Lead with passion, minister mercy cheerfully. And in this chapter, Bill in the Bible study this morning, he was going into how there's a gift of encouragement. And it's so true. I gave the example of I can hang out with Mr. David Hofline for about 5 minutes and he's going to make me feel like a brick of gold. And it's true because that's your gift. And when I try to talk about my weaknesses, he doesn't let me. And he reminds me how these strengths outweigh these weaknesses. And I'll go back to him, but no, David, what about this week? He'll say, don't worry about that. This strength is overcoming that weakness.
There you go. So good.
And then a couple weeks ago, I was talking about how there's caught and not taught, and there's taught and not caught. And I think that this gift of encouragement goes both ways. So it's something that David caught. But there's some of us where it's not necessarily a gift, or as Bill was talking about, like a mantle that really rests on someone. We have to work on it. We have to work on it with our words of affirmation. And when we see someone do something good, we tell them, you did something good. And sometimes it's hard for us to do that because there may be some level of competition in the way, or there may be some level of judgment in the way. But this is going to help us build character. Because if I felt like I was in competition with David, and David gives this word and he delivers this word, and I'm like, oh, I got to tell him, but what do I? All right, David, that was an amazing word today. Well, you might as well not say it. You know, it's like sit and have a conversation with someone. Exhortation and affirmation. It is a gift. And as I'm learning the gift myself, I learned to ask questions to the person. Like, how did you do that? David, where did you dig inside the scripture to grab that? Where did you see this? What did you, and all of a sudden now he's sending me like text messages of where he saw things in the word, or a conversation, or sometimes a funny meme or something like that like kind of, breaks the daily grind, but encourages me. Verse 9 says, love without any agenda. Utterly detest evil. Be glued to good. Maybe you can say, I want to be glued to good. Love without any agendas, any hidden agendas. Utterly detest evil. Be glued to good. Verse 10, take tender care of one another with fondness and affection. Esteem one another's unique value. Do not allow any hesitation to interrupt the rhythm of your zeal. Capture the moment. Maintain the boiling point intensity of spirit devotion to the Lord. Maintain the boiling point. And that's where Paul was talking. I think it was in Thessalonians where he says, I pray without ceasing. And we're all thinking, like, what does that even mean? What do you mean pray without ceasing? It's a constant communication that he had with the Lord. And that's how he was driving his life. He was driving his life at a constant boiling point because he refused to let the reputation of the man's reputation of himself get in the way. He refused it. He absolutely refused it. And that's how he lived life. Verse 12, last verse in Romans here for me to read today is, delight yourselves in the pleasure of expectation. Delight yourself in the pleasure of expectation. Tomorrow, today, your life, bring your expectations before God. It says, delight yourself in the pleasure of expectation. Prayer prevails victoriously under pressure. So how are you hearing encouragement? Are you receiving encouragement? Are you encouraging others? This is key. This is really key. I'm going to give you a quick testimony. I don't really want to, but I'm going to because it's embarrassing. Yeah, you're involved. And I shared this at the men's night, so I figured I'd just share this. But it's important even to hear from your spouse. Encouragement from your spouse. Did you hear me? It's important to hear the encouragement from your spouse. Even if it sounds like a fight. I'm going to tell you what I mean. So there I am, minding my own business, as usual. That was the first thing that was wrong? Thank you. So there I was, minding my own business, not looking for any trouble. And I was on one side of the bedroom. She was on the other. It was right before prophetic conference started. And I was kind of just grappling with God, like, what's my part? What am I doing? You know, and I kind of came to these terms like, God, you've given me this part to do, and this is what I'm going to do. But it wasn't really doing it with a joyful heart. It was more along the lines of just doing it because I was instructed to do this by Big Papa. And so I'm thinking, okay, I can get through this. And so I start to walk across the room. And I behold my wife V-lining it for me. And she gets about this close to me, and she says, "What's your problem?" And I said, "Nothing." She goes, "No, what's the matter?" I said, "I don't want to talk about it." And she goes, "That attitude's going to get you in trouble." And I said, I don't know what to do right now. I'm thinking in my head, I didn't say this. I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. And I looked at her and I said, "You need to get out of my way." And she said, "I'm not getting out of your way." And I said, "Please, just get out of my way." Do you know what happens next? Do you think she moved? No. Wow, you guys know her so well. Do you know what she said to me? She said, "Raise your hands to God right now." At that point, I felt like I was 5. And I'm sitting there going, and all I hear is God saying, "Now's your chance." And I'm thinking, it is my chance. It is my chance. She goes, "No, lift your hands to God and thank him for something." And I said, "Okay." And I lifted my hands and I thanked him for something. And we embraced and she let me through. And then I felt different. Yes, I did. And I felt the release from whatever the thing was that was kind of holding me back, that I felt like I was just going to do a job. Like, this is my job. I was coming up to lead some worship and to do some things in the, I don't think it would, like, prophetic table or whatever it was. But me going into that situation thinking I'm going to do a job, that really stinks. But me walking into a job thinking about my lifestyle doesn't. Because I'm bringing my lifestyle and my character into everything that I do. So, Amy released me from that. And I had to hear her. I had to hear the encouragement. Because at the very beginning of that conversation, it was not encouraging. It was not. I felt like a child. I felt like I was getting treated like a child. And the reason was because I needed to be. Because I was acting like a child. And she saw that. Even though I didn't say 2 words to her, she still saw that in me because she's my wife. And she said, it's time to change. You're a man. It's time to man up. So give thanks to God for something. Like, oh my God, thank God this is almost over. Sorry, I think Blake said that last night. So, I just want to finish up with this scripture here. If we can go to Matthew 7. Verse 7. And you all know this. This is the Sermon on the Mount. And I just want to bring out a couple pieces of gold in this and encourage you for this week. Verse 7 says, ask and the gift is yours. Seek and you'll discover. Knock and the door will be opened for you. For every persistent one will get what he asks for. Every persistent seeker will discover what he longs for. And everyone who knocks persistently will one day find an open door. And I was starting to do this a little, I don't know if you guys know this guy. He was a philosopher, theologian type guy back in like 200 something. His name was Clement of Alexandria. And he was writing these, they call this book like the miscellaneous book because it was like these thoughts that were like here and there and everywhere. But what he was doing is he was bringing out the Greek, and he was a Greek philosopher, and what he was doing is he was bringing out all this Greek, and he was showing you the perfection of Christianity. That's what he wanted to show you. So he wrote down, the one who seeks should not cease until he finds. And in finding, he shall marvel. And having marveled, he shall reign. And having reigned, he shall rest. And when I read that, I was like, wow. That is the perfection that Jesus is talking about here. It's because we can read this and we think, man, I just got to strive for this. And I got to ask, I got to knock, and I got to seek, and I got to, and this is what we're going to do this week. We're going to ask. We're going to take our needs before the Father. But do it in rest. It says, I think in the chapter just before, right? In verse 7, chapter 6, verse 7, when you pray, there's no need to repeat empty phrases, praying like the Gentiles do, for they expect God to hear them because of their many words. There's no need to imitate them, since your Father already knows what you need before you ask him. And some would argue, yeah, but he already knows what I need. Well, then what's the purpose of prayer? The purpose of prayer is the conversation piece, is bringing the need before God. It's the adding of the faith that you have, that this thing is not present and I want to make it present. And I want to sit in this rest. I want to know, God, I know how you think about me. And I'm marveling at all the things that you've done for me. And I know you're going to do it again. And you're going to do something different for him and her. So we sit inside of this rest. Because the Father already knows what we need before we ask him. I also want to refer to verse 7 there, where about getting loud in prayer, and it's so funny that this is something that's happened for a long time. So people, when they used to pray to gods and goddesses, they would get really worked up. And it wasn't just about hearing my voice out loud. It was about that too, what Jesus is saying. But it's also about trying to stir up the god so you get their attention to look at you and focus on you and get what you need. And Jesus is saying, you don't have to do that. Don't pray like that. Pray out of your rest. And know God hears you. The thing I want to leave you with here is, the Greek in the ask, seek, and knock. It's a present active imperative verb tense. You want to know what that means? I need my essential students in here. They tell me. The present active imperative verb tense of ask, seek, and knock. The active here is continual. That's what it is. That's all it means. It continues from that day till now into tomorrow. Ask, knock, seek. Ask, knock, seek. Ask, knock, seek. It's a constant, continual. Jesus is using this verb tense saying, this wasn't just for then. This is for now, and this continues on. You don't stop. Keep and continually build your character and continually build your strength. This thing is rocking all over. Sorry. But it's for today. It's an active tense. I want to read one more scripture, and then I'm going to close. This, y'all laughing at me. I hear people talking out there. He's really going to do it. I think so. It's really going to close. He said it like 3 times now. Usually on the 3rd time, it really goes in. But God is good. I'm just so excited about this week, and I'm excited about this new year. I really am. I think that we have such an awesome opportunity. And I hope that you know you have an awesome opportunity. If you turned a new page this year on January 1st, congratulations. I'm glad that you did. And I'm standing behind you and encouraging you and pushing you with all my character and with all my strength to help you through. Ephesians 6, verse 18. It says, prayer is an ongoing conversation. Praying in the Spirit includes every form of prayer, whether it be a prayer of request or a prayer of thanksgiving or worship or interceding for all to realize their saintly innocence. Oh, and remember, you don't have to do all the talking. Always be attentive to the voice of the Spirit. And this is what I want to leave you with today. Aim, could you join me? Maybe we could all stand. We're going to just pray in just a second. But one of the things that I really want to encourage you with is Amy had made reference to, if you don't have English words for an hour, that's okay. I encourage you to have English words for a half an hour. I'm thinking that a lot of times we do a lot of talking and not enough listening. And if prayer is a conversation, then let it be a conversation. So I want to encourage you as you pray and you think about your family and you're praying about your church and you're praying about your community. Leave 50% room to hear the voice of God. Let the Spirit speak. I think that's really important because we can often get our minds all muddled up with the fact that I have to pray this and I have to come up with something to say. And that's not it at all. God wants to hear your heart. So even if it's for 15 minutes and you pray and you're like, Lord, I've emptied myself out. 5 minutes, you empty yourself out. Pray in the Spirit for the other 55 and listen to what God has to say. And not only listen to what God has to say, but share what God has to say. Make sure that you're making it known. Make your request known before God because he knows what you need, and then he's going to answer you. And he wants you to share the answers that he gives you. Let's call this an open book test. You have all the answers in front. The Lord just downloaded all the answers in front of you, and it's for your friends, to share. You don't have to write it on your hand and show someone across it. I don't know if you ever did that in high school. But I would just encourage you to go 50-50. 50 talking and 50 listening. Some of the most amazing times in prayer in my own life have been that 50% of just listening and hearing the voice of God. Even when Tony was speaking and I heard the Lord say, this is the year of encouragement and strength. Amen. Well, I was just thinking maybe we could just join hands, if you want to, across the place. If not, join with your husband, wife, friend. And I just want to start by praying in the new year right now. I'm sure some of us already have. Amy and I already have began praying, but corporately here this morning, I just think it's so important. Amen. Amen. Well, Father, I just thank you for our church. Father, everybody watching online, everybody around the world, Lord, I just thank you so much for what you're developing in us. Father, we are developing each other's destinies. Father, you have spoken the prophetic utterances out of the prophet's mouth over us, Father, showing us this thing maybe a little too far away that we can't grasp or we're thinking about or whatever, but that's our destiny, Father. I thank you that we're helping one another get there. With encouragement, Father. I think that this is a year of encouragement and strength. And I thank you, Father, that the strength that we have is the prayer time with you, Father. Whether it's shared individually or corporately, as a couple, as a family. Father, I know that you honor those things. And you want to hear us. You want to hear our voice. You want to hear us say the things that we need. So, Father, we ask for the things. Whatever those things, maybe you can just start to imagine right now the things that you need. Start to imagine those things right now and just start to place them before God. Father, these are the things that we need, and we're asking. And we're not ashamed, Father, because we are your sons and we are your daughters, and you've called us to become acquainted with this perfection. So, Father, as I begin to think about that, I just thank you for the perfection that you've put inside of all of us as we come before you, Father, in this week of prayer. And we agree together. Father, we just thank you for everything that's being lifted up throughout the entire week. For family, for church, for community. And we just thank you for it all. Amen.